Hello and welcome to another edition of the Under Center podcast. I am, of course, Darren Marr, your host. I am joined by Jake Woolhead and Rian Malloy today. Lads, Jake, you unfortunately didn't get a chance to go to the game on Saturday. Rian, you were there along with myself at the Aviva. What did you think of the occasion?
It was a pretty good game, to be honest. I wasn't expecting much when I went in. But both offense moved the ball pretty well. Both defenses had some plays that they made, particularly that pick at the end that won it for Northwestern. Overall, a very, very good game.
Yeah, Jake, did you get to catch any of the highlights even of the game at all?
No, I literally was heading out at like 6 o'clock, so I watched the first half an hour, but I was already pre a few drinks at that point, so not too much in the old memory bank. But I heard it was a good event. I was offered multiple sets of tickets, and I heard there was free drinks, so I apparently missed out on the best evening ever.
Definitely missed out on the best evening ever, and you're right with the amount of free drinks that were consumed by everyone. The videos I'm sure people have seen of the cup snakes going all around the stadium, even from tier to tier, have been fantastic as well. But yeah, really surprising result with Northwestern winning. Nebraska actually at one point were 13-point favorites in that game, so it just shows how good it was. Just me observing, obviously being on the defensive line, neither defensive line were that great, and it kind of well, maybe both offensive lines are good, but neither defensive line was great. I was looking out for that, but overall, really, really good game, good occasion. Looking forward to next year now already for Notre Dame against Navy, that I'm sure will sell out in no time as well. And Nebraska, I must say, have a huge following that follow them all over the country and even now to different countries too. Jake, nice to zoom in there. I like that.
Yeah, I didn't think that was going to be as dramatic as I thought it was going to be. But
is that like Jake's version of the Oscar music telling Dara to wrap it up and move on? Let's go. But we are just a week away, guys, from the start of the NFL season. This time next week, we will be looking ahead to Bills versus Rams in SoFi Stadium to kick off the season. Really, really looking forward to that show next week. Make sure you stick to our socials for that, because we do have a plethora of really good guests coming on to the show, so it's definitely not one to miss out. Also, while we're thanking and looking back, I want to say thank you to EA Sports for graciously donating 3 copies of Madden 23 to us to give out as competitions over the last week or so. I really appreciate that. Really appreciate everybody entering the competition and the feedback we received. Congratulations to the 3 winners, of course, and I hope they are enjoying the game. I know when me and Jake, if you want to find out what me and Jake think of the game, you can go to our YouTube channel, Under Center Podcast. We did a little review. Our game review careers, Jake, I think has lasted just 1 game though.
Well, for now, let's not rule out next year's Mad Edition. I hear Call of Duty coming out soon, so maybe we'll get involved there. Who knows?
I don't know. Maybe we might share the wealth maybe next year. If Rain can last the season without talking too much about the Panthers, he might get a look in a Madden 24 copy. We'll see. We'll see if the people at EA are very are gracious enough to give us another chance to do a competition next year. Fingers crossed they are. But we are going to continue our look at all 8 divisions heading into the start of the season. We have talked about the AFC and NFC West and East, but today we're going down south, looking at the AFC South and NFC South, of course. But before we get into that, we're just going to go through a few news pieces this week. Of course, on Tuesday was the big day where all teams had to cut down their rosters to 53 players. A few notable surprises that have come along. Jake, we'll start with you, because surprisingly, a former New York Giant who moved to Tampa Bay in the offseason in Logan Ryan, thinking that he was going to be on the team, was unfortunately cut. Now, at the time of recording, it looks like they are going to bring him back on the practice squad, but definitely not what he probably thought making the move this offseason.
Yeah, no, that's a mad move. Like, he's a pretty quality free safety, good leader in the locker room, and he left the Giants because they didn't want to re-sign him, save the Giants $1.5 million, but he also still got $11.5 million salary this year. So I don't know what the story is with that. I actually didn't even think it was possible for him to go on the practice squad because he's a vested veteran or whatever, but shows what I know.
I think COVID rules changed that.
Or maybe, yeah.
Yeah, six veterans allowed on the practice squad these days.
I don't know.
Yeah, and Rangers just looking at a few other names. I don't know if you've seen a few yourself over the last couple of hours, but the first round pick for the Las Vegas Raiders a couple of years ago, Alex Leatherwood, has also been let go today. I don't know if you've been paying much attention to the Panthers side of things, but definitely there's a few cuts, and I'm guessing a few teams are going to be putting in a few waiver claims over the next few days.
I would imagine so. There is, most notably off the Panthers, they've cut 6th round pick from last year, Deontay Brown. Everybody kind of remembers him as being that meme, where he was lined up in the Georgia gear and he looked like Blastoise from Pokemon. But yeah, apparently he's been suffering with some weight issues. We drafted a new offensive guard and he's going to take his spot. So, yeah, down in the South, though, there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't know what they're smoking down there, but Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, he's moved off to the Eagles now. The Panthers have inexplicably brought in Laviska Shenault. Don't know why they needed another wide receiver, but there you go. So, yeah, look, we'll see how it all pans out after the waiver wires clear. And, yeah, it's going to shake things up a lot.
Derek, can I just say before we go on, did you see that stat about the Raiders draft picks from 2019, first round draft picks from 2019 to 2021?
Oh, I think like none of them are still on the team.
2019, like Cleveland Farrell, Josh Jacobs, and Jonathan Abram, all their 50-year options declined. 2020, Henry Ruggs and Damon Arnett both waived. And then 2021 is Alex Leatherwood waived after one season. That's just crazy. Obviously, John Gruden is just really bad.
Well, it's not just John Gruden. You have to give Mike Mayock there a bit of the blame there too, being GM, of course.
Though, to be fair, I think
he was but wasn't Mike Mayock. He was the NFL's draft guy who had the best draft analysis, and he didn't really stick to his. I don't know if he stuck to his own opinion, or like you said, Jake, that it was all John Gruden saying, "I've got the right feel for this guy. I like the way he feels." But hey. We'll see. I'm sure we'll have a look at more, plenty of more, like some notable ones as well. Like I think it was also the 2021 pick for the Vikings, Kellen Mond was let go. Ian Book, last year's pick for the Saints, also let go. A few surprising quarterback, a few releases, I should say. So definitely a few interesting ones there to keep your eye on. But we move on to some of the other news this week, and quite upsetting, potentially almost tragic news with the Washington Commanders and their rookie running back Brian Robinson Jr. Just a day after reports surfaced that he was going to be the starting running back for the team, he was shot twice during apparent carjacking. Now, thankfully, the injuries are not life-threatening, and on Tuesday we heard the news that he is expected to make a full recovery and come back to the team. No timeline is given as of yet to when exactly he will return. But Rian, I'll start with you first on this one. It's from the highs of probably hearing that you're going to be the starting running back to obviously the lows of almost not just losing your career but losing your life in a violent robbery.
Yeah, this is seriously scary stuff, and I feel for the guy. He wasn't doing anything wrong in this situation. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he's lucky to have escaped with his life, let alone his career. I think it's just amazing that he's escaped with just those. I think it was his hip and a leg injury, and they're slating him for return. I mean, this guy he's a very promising young talent, and I'm happy to see that we will. At some stage be able to see him play in the league because he really deserves it just on his talent alone.
Yeah, it was nice to see that he's kind of recovering. Obviously, nothing's going to be too bad for him. As you said, he wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just wrong place, wrong time for him, and that's unfortunate for him. But I did see today that he's on the 51 man roster there for the Commanders, so they're expecting him back this season at some point.
Yeah, so fingers crossed it won't be too long at all, and we'll probably see Antonio Gibson probably be the starting running back for the next little while. Maybe a split between him and JD McKissick until Robinson is able to get back to the team. Moving on, for 49ers QB, Jimmy Garoppolo had been in the news a lot this offseason, and he was in the news a little more because what we all thought was going to happen where he'd be released or find a new team. The Niners had issues finding him a trade partner, so instead they decided to offer him a restructured deal so that now he is the highest paid backup in the NFL.
No, he's not. He's not.
Oh.
You are mistaken. Sam Darnold is earning $18.98 million this year. That's
right.
5th-year option.
Okay. Well, I guess. Okay, second most expensive backup. Damn, Darnold's earning 18 million this year. Damn.
Yeah, that's what a 5th option will get you as a first-round pick. 5th-year option.
Whew. I'm kind of shocked now with that.
You really taken Darrell off.
Shook him. I've shook him to his core.
Sam Darnold, 18 million. Oh, and I know we're going to get into talking about the Panthers in a little bit as well, but wow, 18 million. But anyway, Garoppolo was due actually to make 25 this year, 25 million. But his new deal means he's going to get 6.5 million guaranteed. I think goes up to about 12, 15 if certain guarantees are met. Now, guys, I want to ask you this question because they obviously wanted Garoppolo out of the building all offseason, coming off the shoulder injury as well. Do you think that him staying around is a good thing for not the team, but for Trey Lance's development? Or does that give him a little bit of a, there's a Jimmy Garoppolo shaped shadow behind me just waiting for me to mess up? Jake, I'll start with you on this one.
No, that's it's a ridiculous move. It's a great move on Jimmy G's part, I'm not going to lie, but almost a rookie quarterback coming in, just after a couple of interceptions, a couple of bad games where they lose because of some mistakes he made, they're going to be calling for Jimmy G's name. Even the players in the locker room know that they're a good team, and now they're losing because they have a quarterback, in which they weren't doing with Jimmy G last year. So I just think that's a weird move. I'm hoping maybe, unless they trade him at some point or something, but this is probably the best move for Jimmy G, because if he sticks around a bit, does be a backup, and at some point replaces Trey in the lineup and plays well, he's off his deal next year and he can sign a whopper deal with someone who wants him, or they trade him to another team who wants him, plays well there, and then he still earns another contract. But if he had gone to a shit team, maybe he went to the Giants or something, played shit, then he looks bad. He's not going to get big of a contract next year. So good move on Jimmy G's part. Quite a confusing move from Kyle Shanahan and the crew for me.
Yeah, Rian, just before, I just want to ask you as well that I'm sure Lance was told this whole offseason by either GM John Lynch or by head coach Kyle Shanahan that we're getting rid of Jimmy. You don't have to worry about Jimmy. You're our guy. And now to see that they're keeping him on, it's got to definitely play into his head at some point.
Yeah, the optics are just a little bit off on both sides, I think. I think from Jimmy G's side, it shows a lack of ambition. He should be thinking in his own head, I can go somewhere and start in this league and prove myself as a starting quarterback, as opposed to trying to back up Trey Lance and hope for his demise. It just seems a bit odd to me. But then on the 49ers side of things, it shows that they're not really 100% confident in Trey Lance's ability, or at least that's the way it looks from the outset. Now, they might try and spin it and tell Trey Lance, it's like, look, this is the best safety net you could ever have. Go out, sling the ball, put yourself out there, and, if you do get injured, don't worry about it. We have Trey Lance to come in, and we still are, I wouldn't say Super Bowl contenders, but certainly, playoff team. Still, though, the optics just don't sit right with me at all.
No, I agree with you guys too. I think that this could have a negative impact on Trey Lance's development. If he had the freedom to know that, look, this year you can make mistakes, and you are the starting quarterback. There are going to be some bumps and bruises. You're going to have to, get used to the NFL level. That I think that could have helped him knowing that he didn't have Jimmy Garoppolo there behind, and if the team feel like you mentioned that like they need to do this to get into playoffs, that look, we're going to need to sit Lance. It's kind of that thing where, well, who is your starting quarterback? You can say it's Lance all you want, but if you're still having Jimmy G there, there's still that bit of doubt, and it still comes back to the day that Lance was drafted as well, because if we remember back to draft day, we all thought it was going to be Mac Jones. That's why they moved up and sold their
We all
soul.
thought that era. If
Yeah.
you went back to that podcast, I don't know if we all thought that. No, we certainly
Well, okay. Majority thought that. Okay, all right, Jake. All right, but like the majority thought that. That's why they sold the house to get Mac Jones at number 3, and they went with Trey Lance in the end. And then the reports came out that it was Shanahan who wanted Jones, and it was GM John Lynch that wanted Lance, and then they went with the GM and they went with Lance. So we'll see. This is going to be an interesting year for the 49ers. I feel they have a decent roster there, like what you said, Reen, that I don't think they're particularly Super Bowl contenders. Despite the fact that they were only one game away from making the Super Bowl last season, I still think that they are a decent playoff team that are one of the only challengers to the Rams in the NFC West. And then we'll see how the chips fall in terms of who they have to play in the playoffs then in that scenario. We'll move on to our last piece of news before we get onto the main topic of today's show, and that is the NFL releases top 100 list. And we've seen the debate all week on Twitter, online, wherever, about who should have been put where, who was not on it and should be on it. Of course, Tom Brady was number 1, which was met with a lot of controversy as well. But I want to ask you guys, because there is, we can talk for hours about where people exactly were placed, and if one player should have been up a couple of positions or down. If you can pick a name or 2 names, it'd be great, that you feel was either ranked too high, ranked too low, or that didn't make the list that should have made the list. So I'm going to start off, and mine's kind of like a split one, and it's Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf that weren't even on the list at all. I don't know how you can have 2 really good wide receivers not on a top 100 list at all. How can you have like just looking up some of the stats? Lockett has recorded 3 1,000-yard seasons in the last 3 years. He's never gone under 8 touchdowns in each of those seasons. DK Metcalf is 3 years in the league, has not gone under 900 yards. And in 2 of those 3 years, he's had double-digit touchdowns. I don't know then how you can feel that they are not worthy of being in the top 100, but you put Calvin Ridley in the top 100, who didn't play last year and is not going to play this year. So that's my gripe with it, with the top 100 list. But Rain, I'll start with you. I'll go to you. Sorry, next on this one. Is there any name that you have issue with on it?
Well, I have one that needs to go in the bin and one that needs to go up. And the one that I take the most issue with is Trayvon Diggs in the top 40. Why is this guy even in the top 100? He shouldn't be in the top 200. He's probably not in the top 100 players in the AFC East. He's that bad. I talked about it last week. He was beaten for the most yards by any cornerback in NFL history last season. So how does that qualify him to go onto a top 100 list? But anyway, look, I've done enough hating on Trayvon Diggs over the past couple of weeks. So I'll move on to someone who deserves to be much, much higher up the list. And I think that's Justin Herbert. I believe he came in at number 18. And if you compare him side by side with Tom Brady, who came in at number 1, his stats are pretty much identical, right? He had over 5,000 passing yards. He had, I can't remember how many touchdowns, but his touchdown to interception ratio was one of the best in the league. I don't know why they're hating on this guy. Maybe it's just that he's younger than some of the other quarterbacks who are ranked above him, so he has a little bit more to prove. But I think he did prove it last season and is deserving of being higher up that list.
Well, I think wasn't Deshaun Watson ranked ahead of him, even though he didn't play last year as well.
Deshaun Watson made the list.
That's also a big issue too. But also on the Trayvon Diggs thing, Jake, I want to ask your opinion on this. Did Fionn give Reen the notes on that?
No, he didn't. It's well known. We're all arguing. I could sit here and talk how shit this fella is as well. And you don't have to stop because you rag on him too much. He's a Cowboys player. It's enough to keep on ragging on him. So I'm all for that. Yeah, I'm all for notifying everybody how many interceptions he got, but also how many touchdowns he gave up as well, because it's a ridiculous stat. But I agree with Ree. I think Justin Herbert should absolutely be higher on that list. That's madness. I hate that list. It just annoys me. It's so petty. There's so many. Is it last year? Is it total career? Is it what? It's all shite. Like, I would have changed it. Aaron Donald should have been up ahead of Tom Brady at 1, I think, anyway. He's too valuable to that team to be disregarded. I mean, 2 isn't a disregarded, but he should be 1 anyway. I just can't stand the list anyway. It just annoys me. And Daniel Jones wasn't on it, and clearly this man can run. He's faster than a lot of wide receivers if he can run in a straight line and not fall over.
Daniel Jones wasn't on it. Mac Jones was on it. And he was ranked ahead of Kirk Cousins, which I don't understand.
Why is Kirk Cousins on it? He's not even that good. Like,
he was 99th on the list, like, so.
Yeah,
surely Daniel Jones could have slipped in there somewhere.
Kirk Cousins is a Dak Prescott / Derek Carr / Carson Wentz. He's just a stat filler.
Andy Dalton has to go in there as well.
Well, if you're saying that, then he should have been in the top 40, because I think Carr and Dak were in the top 40 in the list. But look, let's move on. If you do have any anything to say about the NFL 100 list, if there's any name that you didn't like on it, just get in contact with us. Go to our socials at UnderCenterPod on Twitter, the same on Instagram as well. And you can talk to us there. Let us know what you think of the list or any of the stories we've talked about so far today. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel as well, Under Center Podcast. That's where you get all of our shows and catch up. We will also cut the shows into different segments so that if you don't have time to listen to the full or watch the full podcast, you can watch it in segments. If you prefer listening to it on the go, we do the exact same thing. Under Center Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, that's where you'll find the show. Again, we cut it up into bite-sized chunks so that you will always have content there to listen to whenever you are on the go. But let's move on to the meat and bones of today's show, and that is looking at the south of the country. That is the AFC and NFC South. We're going to start with the NFC South, and we're going to start with last year's champions. That, of course, is the Tennessee Titans. An interesting year for them this year. They, of course, lost AJ Brown in that trade on draft night to the Philadelphia Eagles. They brought in Treylon Burks to take his place, which is going to be interesting. Of course, they brought in Malik Willis as well, which I'm sure will take over from Ryan Tannehill in a year or two. The Julio Jones experiment unfortunately did not work out last year for the team. He spent a lot of the time out injured. Bringing in Robert Woods, though, I think is a very underrated signing by the team. I think he's going to be really good. He spent last year on the injured list as well with his ACL injury, so hopefully he can come back. And I think it's going to be important for the development of Burks too, that he has someone experienced like Woods there beside him, so that it doesn't feel like it's all, of course, on him. From what I'm seeing reports that their 2021 first round pick, Caleb Farley, has had a really, really good offseason too. He came into the team with injury issues from college, especially with his back. So there's a bit of changes for Coach Vrabel around the team, but I'm sure he's not going to allow the sort of the level of quality to sort of dip. One player we haven't mentioned as well that you have to mention when you talk about the Tennessee Titans is Derrick Henry. And he spent some of the time injured last season. He came back. I felt he was rushed back. He didn't look fit. And I think that also coincided with them making an early exit in the playoffs. So it's an interesting one with the Tennessee Titans this year. They sort of for me, they have been sort of on a level. They haven't gone up, they haven't gone down. But the problem is, so many other teams in the AFC have gone up with these big moves that they're making, especially in the West that we talked about already. And I don't know if what they have done is going to be enough to A, keep the number one seed that they had last year, and B, maybe make a decent run in the playoffs. But Jake, I'm going to start with you on this one. What do you feel about the Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like the Tennessee Titans. I don't like Ryan Tannehill most of all. The rest of the team is actually fine. Mike Vrabel I like as well, but I think the hamstring they have is Ryan Tannehill, and he's okay because he's got Derrick Henry, and that means the whole offense is almost going to run smooth as anything. So, yeah, I think they're going to be fine, as you said there. I don't think they took a step up, but they certainly haven't really taken a step back either. So. The Treylon Burks thing, I thought that was quite an interesting one, like a mini AJ Brown, a rookie version of him, but perhaps maybe not so injured as AJ Brown has been. So maybe that was the thought process, not paying an older wide receiver a lot of money to be injured. So yeah, no, I like that draft pick. I think, am I hearing him kind of struggling with the athletics part of it in the NFL preseason and stuff and training camp, or is that just am I imagining that? But anyway, and the Robert Woods one I think is a good one as well there, because yeah, as you said, it's going to help Treylon Burks kind of navigate into the NFL world and bring him up to speed. So if he can stay healthy, that team's going to be a lot better than I think. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of them, to be honest.
Rian, what do you think about the Titans this year?
Well, look, I think they're probably the only position that they've downgraded at is wide receiver. And that's with a big asterisk because of the health issues that both Julio Jones and AJ Brown have seen in the past. Now, Robert Woods is not without his injury issues himself throughout his career. But at the same time, we don't need to talk about the wide receivers when we're talking about the Tennessee Titans. It's the Derrick Henry show, start to finish. And I think that's what's going to do it for them again. I think they're going to probably win this division, in my opinion. And yeah, they'll be on the back of Henry doing that the whole time. I think their draft pick in Malik Willis was absolutely phenomenal because it's going to add a whole different dimension to that offense once Tannehill does move on. Tannehill is not the most mobile guy. He plays a lot off the play action, but now you're adding in kind of this element of now we need to watch out for an extra runner in the backfield with Malik Willis. So yeah, I like that draft pick. I think it's one for the future. So if they can go ahead and kind of make the playoffs this season, I think they're in a very good position for next season to kind of go on and get that number one seed back again, and maybe, just maybe, make a run at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I like what you say there about Willis and sort of the extra runner option, which is something they could potentially do this year as well, because you have those, third and short situations, maybe a 4th and 1 or something like that. You have Willis and, Derrick Henry in the backfield. The read option is going to confuse a lot of defenses as well that I think could help them this season. But then let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts. Jake, I'm going to let you go first on this one. Tell me what you're thinking about the Colts this year.
Yeah, no, I like the Colts. I think getting rid of Carson Wentz is kind of, I don't know, it said there was a lot of locker room problems or something going on. Obviously, he just wasn't liked in that by the coaches there. Certainly, I don't know if it's an upgrade to say you're adding Matt Ryan to that team, but he's Matt Ryan. He's not going to be a bad quarterback as such. They still have a pretty decent offense, and yeah, I'm happy with them. I don't think they're Super Bowl bound. I think if they get a playoff, it might be an any given Sunday type job. But overall, I think they're okay. I don't know. They're the Colts, and they've always been the Colts to me.
Rain, I go to you on this one next. The Colts, how are you feeling about them this year?
Yeah, as Jake alluded to, my own opinion is probably a little bit different to his. It's kind of a bit of a head scratcher for me. You have Wentz, who is at least an athlete, playing a quarterback there. You decide to trash him on the way out the door, and then you go ahead and bring in Matty Ice, who is aging, Admittedly, he's still not too bad of a quarterback, but he is just a guy. He's not going to be the guy to win the game for you. I think the Indianapolis Colts are built on such a foundational backbone. They're strong throughout that whole team, offense and defense, and now they're just being hampered by that quarterback position. If they could have gone out in that quarterback carousel over the last couple of years and got themselves somebody really good, like say a Matthew Stafford or a Russell Wilson, I think they'd be in Super Bowl contention. But with Matty Ice under center, I'm not sure if they're going to win the division. They'll probably make it to the playoffs, but I'd say they're probably going to be a one and done, because when it gets to that top level, it really relies on the quarterback play from the offensive side.
I think they're just hoping on running on the back of Jonathan Taylor and having a good offensive line and having Matt Ryan to kind of game manage that offense, give them the little dink and dunks, let the running back do the job, and then kind of run it into that way. But is it going to be successful? Not in the long term. I don't think. They probably have them wins here or there, but I don't think they're going to get there on a sustained success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean, and like you guys have covered a lot of areas that I was going to bring up. Obviously, notably the quarterback. They haven't really ever gotten over the fact that Andrew Luck retired on them so prematurely. These fill-in quarterbacks here and there, from Brissett to Rivers to Wentz to now to Matt Ryan. It's a strange one, and I kind of fear for them a little bit this year. I think that they haven't really made a lot of improvements to that team that's needed, especially on offense. I, for one, was very critical last year of their wide receiving group, and they lost probably their best wide receiver in T.Y. Hilton. Now they have got Michael Pittman has shown glimpses and has improved year on year, so they're probably hoping for a breakout year for him this year. They drafted a young wide receiver, Alex Pierce, as well, so they're probably hoping for something with that too. But again, I'm not overly impressed in the wide receiver group. Like you mentioned, Jake, they'll probably rely a lot on Jonathan Taylor, but he can only do so much. If they're behind a bit in games, they can't keep relying on the run, because teams will just, fill that box and, hopefully force Ryan into making a mistake, which he has got in him. He's shown his age the last 2 years, especially in Atlanta. And maybe that's because he's had to take so much on his shoulders in there. Like you're saying, he won't be relied on, hopefully, as much now, so that he can sort of just have those important throws that he doesn't have to be thrown 40, 50 times a game. He can take it down to 30, 35, something like that. I'm sure it'd be ideal. On the defense side of things, it's interesting because their big offseason, two of their biggest offseason moves are on the defense. First of all, the trade for Yannick Ngakoue, which him on the line with DeForest Buckner and coming into a second year of Kwity Paye as well is going to be very, very good. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that. They've also brought in Stephen Gilmore after his, you could say, I probably, Reen, you probably would know better, but he didn't really pull up any trees in Carolina with the Panthers after making that big move. So he's going to try and resurrect the form that he showed when he was with New England, when he won Defensive Player of the Year in 2019, and now with the Colts playing opposite Kenny Moore. But the defense is interesting. Like I said, the offense I kind of worry for a little bit, but like I said, I think if there's any team that's going to drop off, and I think it could be the Colts. I think that I worry for them this year, especially. Before we move on, does anyone else have anything else to say about the Colts?
A fair play to the Atlanta Falcons for listening to me and blowing up that team. Like I said, they must have watched the show when I said that. But so, yeah, you can always give me a jersey or something, a few tickets. I'll gladly accept.
Well, there's ways to blow up a team, and I don't think they blew it up properly. But yeah,
no, they didn't.
They ended up blowing
drafted
it up, so.
Kyle Pitts last year for some strange reason. But yeah, no, I agree with you.
We'll get on to the Falcons in a little bit for sure, and we can have a little more in-depth look on that. But let's move on to the third team in this division, the Houston Texans. And Ryan, I'm going to let you go first on this one. How are you feeling about the Houston Texans this year?
if I'm a Houston Texans fan, I'm not feeling too good about them. That whole organization has been a shit show for a few years now, and yeah, I don't know. I can't remember the QB's name. Davis Mills. He didn't show enough to me last year to be a starting quarterback in the league, so I don't know how the Texans have gone ahead and decided to give him one more year. Like, sure, he's grand, but he is backup quality at best. Couple all that with the whole Deshaun Watson nonsense that went on last year. They haven't really added any major names to that offense, to the best of my knowledge. So they're going to really struggle on offense again. I think they're going to really struggle on defense. It's going to be a race to the bottom for them and the Jaguars in that division.
Are you talking about Deshaun Watson, Texans safety? He was playing safety in their practice games last season. If you didn't know that, that's stupid. The whole carry on of Deshaun Watson on that team was just ridiculous. The whole carry on of that whole saga is ridiculous, but especially him refusing to play, but also playing practice squad safety or whatever he was at the time. But at Davis Mills, I am completely agree with you, Rian, but I think there's one reason and one reason only they're sticking to Davis Mills, and it is that race to the bottom. So as far as I know, they just added a whole load of kind of depth signings. They're free agents that are kind of 2-3 year deals and probably on the back end of their careers anyway. So it's just about riding through this year, I think, and then getting them top quality draft pick next year and getting a quarterback and moving on from that. That's what I think they're just looking at next year, and that's it.
I feel like the Texans are a bit of a sleeper team for me this year.
Oh, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, no, not sleep. No. Hold on.
Put a number on it, Dara. Put a number on it. 10 wins.
Hang on. Can I tell you
what is it?
I'm going to tell you the over
Thursday,
under.
the 1st of September, 2022. Right.
I'll tell you the over under, or do you want to guess it?
The over under, I'm guessing, is what, 5.5.
I think I looked this up. I think it's 4.5.
4.5.
Because that's like, if you could just go over on that one. That seems like an easy win for you there.
Well, no, I look, the reason why I'm calling them a sleeper team for me this year, now, not that they're going to make the playoffs or anything like that. I think they'll beat their over, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of teams this year. I am not as down on Davis Mills as you guys are. I've seen potential in him. I've seen some decent games from him. The organization itself, the less said about the inner workings of that organization, the better. The fact the way they got rid of David Culley, and was disgusting as well. But now it's Lovie Smith there, so they're going to have to give him his backing. They got some interesting pieces. Brandon Cooks is still a really, really good wide receiver. Nico Collins showed flashes last year of how good he can be, and coming into this year again, he can probably show it. Damian Pierce, the rookie running back who's named RB1, he is going to be really good in this offense as well. Their downfall will be their defense. Why they lose most games this year will be their defense, but I don't think it's going to be the offense. And I think there's aspects
also
of
Davis Mills.
Sorry.
Also Davis Mills. That's the other reason.
I don't think so. But
I just don't think he's got sustained success in him. Like, he's just not going to be able to do that. Like,
he may not. But I think that he might do good enough this year where he'll be one of those guys like a Tyrod, where teams are going to take punts on him, saying he can be our starter, and then they'll realize after maybe a season and a half, like, okay, we were wrong, but he's got something, but he hasn't got what we need right now.
I tell you, if he starts to win games, the Texans are benching him for whoever is currently backing him up.
Possibly. I don't know who's back. I can't remember. They have so many roster moves this offseason that I couldn't tell you. I was going to say Nick Foles, but no, he's backing up Matty Ryan. So
the dynamic duo.
I know, right? Two old men in that.
I see Kyle Allen and Jeff Driscoll currently.
Kyle Allen
might not
Jeff
be updated,
Driscoll.
But...
So Washington Commanders and Carolina Panthers legend Kyle Allen is backing him up there. So we'll see. But no, look, that's what they're not going to like win the division. They're not going to do anything crazy like that. But if it's what did you find out the win total was?
4.5. It was 4.5. Yeah,
4.5. I think they can get over that 4.5.
So
I
just
think they
hammer it
can
then.
get 5
Hammer it
wins
there.
this year.
You
I
can,
think
you
I'm
can
going to
easily
go.
put €1,000 on that if you want.
Jake, do you think I even have €1,000?
On that sweet podcast money now, there.
I
I
got
really
in
think
more
we need
hosts
to
now.
do-
It goes out evenly. I can't. I'm losing.
I really think that we need to discuss the coaching involved in the Houston Texans at the moment. I mean, Lovie Smith, wasn't he around that organization? Went off for a little bit of a hiatus in college, had a couple of losing seasons, and then came back as the offensive coordinator, and now is the head coach. That to me is daft. How do you bring back a guy who fails in a college environment
I feel like
to be your head coach eventually?
it's all about riding to next year. They just need a head coach. They need to roster 51 guys to get onto that field. Then they're just gonna blow it all up next year. New head coach, new offense coordinator, and quarterback, and everything. The whole team's gonna be a whole different face next year.
Well, the good news there is there's not a whole lot left to blow up, so it'll be an easy one to do.
We'll just see when it's like week 18 and they get that 5th win. I can come on to the show then the following week with a big smile on my face. And,
I know,
do
I
you
don't
remember,
care
guys?
if they go
Do you
over
remember?
I just want everyone to know Derek called them a sleeper, and that's not winning 5 games.
Sleep. I didn't say sleeper for the Super Bowl. I just said sleeper team.
No, we can't say 5 wins as a sleeper team, and that's all we have to say.
And I just think people are underestimating them. I think they're actually got some pieces there that are interesting. Like I think Derek Stingley is going to be really good in their defense as well.
Yeah, no, we can agree with that one. Yeah, I can get on that one. I just don't think that team is going to be a sleeper team.
Okay, all right. We'll move on then to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They were, of course, the worst team in football last year, getting the #1 pick. And to some people's surprise, picking Trayvon Walker with the #1 pick instead of Adam Hutchinson. Doug Peterson is now in charge of the team after the debacle that was Urban Meyer and his reign there. Thankfully, he's gone, but I feel the scars of that are going to remain. And by that, I mean Trevor Lawrence. He's lost basically a year in the NFL because of all the stuff that went on with Urban Meyer. Now, I don't think there's a better coach that you can get in to help build him back up than Doug Peterson, because he somehow turned Carson Wentz into an MVP. So he's obviously got some magic pixie dust somewhere there that he can sprinkle over Trevor Lawrence to make him a decent quarterback. He spent a lot of money in this offseason as well on free agents. And it's not the first time they've done it. The last time it didn't work, and I feel like this year I don't think it's going to work either. These teams that overspend on these free agents rarely do well, and I think that's what we're going to see again with the likes of paying so much money for Darius Williams and Christian Kirk and stuff that, look, no disrespect to those players, but they're not that level of money.
Christian Kirk is not a $72 million man, is what you're trying to tell me.
Like all 31 other teams and GMs and owners were probably cursing at the Jaguars when they gave out that contract, considering how much they're going to have to pay their own wide receivers now, because Christian Kirk is getting that money. Interesting aspect, though, now coming into this is James Robinson and Travis Etienne both fit at this moment. Obviously, the season hasn't started yet, so we don't know if they'll stay fit. But, it's interesting what their running backfield is interesting. I like that. But what do you guys think? I'll start with you, Jake, on this one, and then go to you, Rian. I was going to say Fionn. Oh, God. Jacksonville Jaguars, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm not too down on them. I don't think they're a great team. I don't think they're a sleeper team either, but I'm not too down on them either. I like their backfield, like the James Robinson and Travis Etienne combination. However that works out, I hope they use them quite well together. And although Christian Kirk and stuff are not the best wide receivers that we are currently having in the league, and are they sadly overpaid? Yes, but they're still quality wide receivers, and having quality pieces all around someone like Trevor Lawrence is only going to help them. So I'm not too down on that offense, and the defense. I don't know too many of them. I just know Josh Allen's on the team, and I like him as a linebacker. So I'm not too down on. I don't think they're going to be crazy good or anything, but they're going to beat teams that they shouldn't have probably bet at the start of the season.
Can you lock them in for not being the #1 pick next year?
Yeah. I'll say they're not #1 next year.
I tend to agree with you there, Jake. I think there's more upside to this team than there is with the Texans, particularly this year. Questionable choice at number one for going for Trayvon Walker, considering the lack of production he had in college last season. But I mean, like, look, I heard a lot of people talk about this guy. He's a freak athlete.
Yeah.
All of the measurables you can
That's all
possibly
we ever
measure.
heard throughout the draft process was he's an athletic freak. So I'm hoping that's just not why they picked him.
Right. We have seen athletic freaks in the past go in the first round and totally stink it up. But let's hope that's not the case for Trayvon, for his sake. But yeah, I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, I think a lot of people are very quick to hate on Lawrence. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I mean, just look at his career in college. He is one of the best we've seen in the past 10, 15 years. So he obviously has talent. He has the backfield now to back him up. They've dealt Laviska Shenault somehow, which is an obvious thing they should have done. So yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot to be upset about if you're a Jags fan. Obviously, it's not going to be Super Bowl bound. You're not going to be playoff bound. But as long as there's improvement this year over last year, I think they have the foundational building blocks to build into a decent franchise.
Yeah, and also we should mention too that we are still waiting as we are recording this, or we're recording this on Tuesday. So just as cut days are there, we could be seeing James McCourt, Irishman James McCourt, being the kicker for the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. So we should mention that too. And how big would that be to see James McCourt kicking in an NFL game?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely delighted for a lad from Ireland, from our own land, to make an NFL team. How rare is that?
Absolutely, yeah. No, great thing for the sport, great thing for Ireland, great thing for the NFL.
Yeah, I think what was the last one? Was it the 70s or the 80s? Was the last Irish player to play in the NFL? So it'll be absolutely huge, and we hope by the time this show goes out that James is a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars' final 53-man roster, and he will be there when they face who they facing first this time. Let me just have a quick look here. Who are they going to be facing? I want to say
Commanders.
The
Commanders.
Is it the Commanders? I thought it was, yeah. So when they face the Commanders, that we see James McCourt kicking for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let's move on then to the NFC South. We'll go through these guys a little quicker as well. We'll start off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, defending NFC South champions. Kind of a strange off season for them. Of course, with the Tom Brady retiring, then unretiring thing. The Bruce Arians retirement, replaced by Todd Bowles. I had my views on it. I've said on the show numerous times that I didn't like the hire myself. They brought in Julio Jones, Russell Gage, Akeem Hicks, just to name a few. It's interesting on the offensive line, though, for them. They've lost some big pieces on the offensive line this year, most notably Alex Kappa, who went to the Bengals, Ali Marpet, who retired, and then in training camp, they lost their center, Ryan Jensen. Now, there is some hope he will be back at some stage during the year, but he still is going to miss a number of weeks. I still see them as the favorite of this division, but I don't know if this is the roster that's going to make Rodgers' supposed last year in the NFL the year that he wants it to be. So that wide receiver core is tasty with Godwin, Evans, Julio, and Russell Gage. It just means that someone's going to be unhappy because they're not getting the ball. So we'll see if the harmony stays friendly in camp. But Rain, I'll start with you on this one. How are you feeling about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading into this season?
Yeah, I think of any year that they're going to be dethroned as the number one team in the NFC South, it's going to be this year. Across the board, they haven't lost a whole lot of talent, but they have lost talent in some very key positions, right? So, as you mentioned, the offensive line, they've lost their 3 starting interior linemen. That's going to change a lot of things. They've also lost their head coach, which is going to throw things up in the air. I just think they're just a little bit in turmoil at the moment. We saw Brady miss most of camp. So yeah, maybe they're there for toppling this year, but we just need to see. This whole division is pretty up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any year that's the year that's going to break Tom Brady's back, it's certainly going to be this year. If he's going to retire, it'll have to be after this year because no offensive line to protect him. He's just going to have to rush that ball. Even though he's got quality wide receivers out, he's going to have no time to get the ball to any of them unless he gets something fixed on that offensive line for him. And then the Todd Bowles, that's a defensive guy. How is he going to stick with? It's the same offensive coordinator for him? Is he still going to have that kind of power as he did before? Who knows? So, yeah, I don't know. I think you're right, Ree. I think that this is the year that they could be maybe not the NFC South champions. But, again, it's still Tom Brady. We can't disregard him completely. So, I still think that team is 1 or 2 in that division.
I still think they have enough, especially on offense, to win that division. But if there is a team that is going to take the title off them, that is probably the New Orleans Saints. Jake, I'm going to start with you first on this one. How are you feeling about the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, I'm okay with them. I mean, I don't think they're a quality team, really. I think they're okay. Certainly still got some good pieces. I'm not sure how Michael Thomas is doing. I believe he wasn't really doing a lot in the offseason, but that's just what I've been reading about him. And then Jameis Winston, he's still Jameis Winston. He's still 30 for 30. So I don't know. They released Ian Book, didn't they? I don't know how that season's going to go for them. I don't think they're Super Bowl bound. I don't even think they're playoff bound, to be honest there. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure at all.
Yeah, 100%. Another team in turmoil at the moment, having, lost Sean Payton very surprisingly during the offseason to retirement. But I just don't see this team succeeding. The players they brought in, I love Chris Olave, but the likes of Jarvis Landry on the outside, he's had his injury issues. I've heard rumors that he's not the most well-liked guy in a lot of locker rooms that he goes into. So I don't really see them being a competitor. Carolina beat the brakes off them last year. And I think they're probably going to have a tough time, particularly within the division this year, versus Carolina and Tampa Bay. And that's, 4 of your games over the course of a, whatever it is, 18-game season.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys covered a lot of points I was going to say as well, with the likes of, obviously we said Sean Payton is gone this year. Dennis Allen comes in, a former defensive coordinator. One thing that we will know for sure is that the defense will continue to sort of perform at a high level. He will not allow their quality to drop. They do have players that will take the ball away from you. They obviously lost one of their prime cornerbacks in Chauncey Gardner, moving to the Eagles this week. Chris Olave is interesting, and you mentioned that, Brian, too. He is someone that I'm going to really like seeing in the NFL for a wide receiver core group that, was struggling with names these last few years, especially in Drew Brees' last few years. It was Michael Thomas or no one. Now they seem to have more players there, which is good. I'm sure they're delighted that Alvin Kamara will not face suspension this season anyway. So he is free to play all 17 games. The likes of Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu as well going into that defense are going to be interesting. Playing in the backfield is going to make things very, very interesting. It's kind of hard to put my finger on what the Saints are going to do. Like you mentioned, like, if we saw, even go back to the start of last season, their first game, they completely obliterated the Green Bay Packers. I think it was 38-3 or something like that, with Jameis Winston throwing 4 touchdown passes. And then there was other games where he just struggled, like those games against the Panthers. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I don't know what it's going to be like offensively now without Sean Payton. I don't know, but we'll have to just wait and see with the Saints. They're kind of a strange one there for me, and I don't know what exactly they can do to sort of not what they can do. We know what they can do, but we don't know what they will do, I should say, this coming season. We'll move on to the Carolina Panthers. And seeing as that is your team, Rain, I'm going to let you take the ball and run with it on this one.
I'm going to use one of your favorite phrases, Dara. Sleeper team. Big time sleeper team. You know what the over-under is on the Panthers? 5.5 wins.
Right.
The Panthers, I'm looking at 10 wins this season, and that's mainly down to the addition of Baker Mayfield. Last season, the only things that they were missing was a healthy Christian McCaffrey and a quarterback who could deal the ball out. Their wide receivers are popping this season. They've improved the O-line significantly. I mean, now we're talking about Dennis Daly just got dealt to the Tennessee Titans for like a 7th round pick or something stupid. Like, this guy was a starter last season. Now he is totally and utterly useless to the Carolina Panthers. That's how good they've made this O-line now. And then you flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. They had the 2nd ranked defense across the league last season, and I think they've only done bits to add to that, right? They drafted at linebacker, they improved at linebacker in the free agency market. JC Horn is back at corner. CJ Henderson looks to be fitting into his role at that team way more than he did at Jacksonville. I can only say good things about the Carolina Panthers this year.
Yeah,
Jake,
I think
before we go into, I just want to ask you one question on top of your reaction to Rain's view on the Panthers. Is Matt Rule starting this year in the hot seat?
yes, absolutely. If this team doesn't get the 10 wins that Ree has promised us, I think that is going to be a really, really hot seat that we might have to start standing up from. I think 10 wins is a bit of an ambitious win-loss ratio for yourself, Ree, because I think you're just rose-tinted glasses or Carolina blue tinted glasses that you're wearing. Now, I'm guilty of it myself. Don't forget that, but the addition of Baker Mayfield, I think that 5.5 win total is it's ridiculous. That can't be right because the Giants are slated to win 7.5, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I certainly think you'll get the 6 wins, maybe 8, something like that. But I can't see 10. I do like the Baker Mayfield addition. I do like the Ike Ekwonu pick at 6 or something like that this year. I think that's really going to strengthen you guys up. If Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy, that really changes that whole team. But that's only if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, right. And I think going back to the win-loss over-under, I think most of that comes down to the strength of schedule this year. It is really, really strong teams that Carolina have to face throughout. It's the AFC North. That's the one with KC and Denver and all those, right?
No, AFC North is the Steelers and Ravens and Bengals.
Right, so it's the AFC West.
Okay.
East? West.
AFC
Yeah.
West.
They have to
Chiefs,
play the division of death, as it were, along with a lot of other stronger NFC teams. So yeah, difficult schedule. Any other year, I think this would be the Carolina Panthers year to make a strong showing in the playoffs. And I think if they make it to the playoffs this season, even with that, strong schedule, they will make an impact. It's not going to be an easy win for somebody if they make it in as a wild card this season.
Okay, that's cool. But I'm gonna have to correct you a little bit there, unfortunately. You're not playing the AFC West this year. You're playing the NFC West this year.
NFC West. Still a strong division.
So that's the Seahawks, 49ers, Cardinals. But you were correct. You are facing the AFC North. So that's Steelers, Ravens, Bengals, and Browns. So, of course, because the week 1 game is the Baker Mayfield revenge game against the Browns, which is going to be interesting. Indeed. But like that, Jake, I agree with a lot of what you were saying, and Rian, I agree with a lot of what you were saying there. The way that I have now set sleeper team as a thing now, which is great for us all. But for me, it all revolves around Christian McCaffrey and whether or not he can stay fit. He hasn't for the last 2 years. So much of that offense runs through him. I don't. The defense I like that. JC Horn was one player, especially that I really liked when he first was in the team. The injury, obviously, just awful in that he ruined what was going to be a rookie team. Sorry, I jumped out there a little bit. I'll just go back quickly. I mentioned that I was talking about the defense. I like JC Horn. He, the injury, what was going to be a promising rookie season. Like I said, I asked you, Jake, about the Matt Rule thing because I feel like he is really on the hot seat here. I think he is probably one of the coaches closest to losing. I'm back again. Sorry about that, guys. I'm just talking about Matt Rule, I should say, and I feel like he is on the hot seat in NFL at the moment. I think with some poor previous years, and I think if he doesn't get a plus 500 record, I'm going to say this year, if it's not at least 9-8, I'd say they're going to move on from. Reen, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I'd have to agree. Rule is definitely on the hot seat this year. He definitely needs to improve the win-loss total. 10 wins over the last 2 seasons is just not a number that we can be sticking to. But at the same time, it seems like David Tepper, the owner, has a lot of confidence in him. He's talked about a 5-year plan. He's also talked about a 6-year plan. So I don't know how long Matt Rule is going to get in this job. But I mean, I think he's done all of the right things this season to get himself in a position where he can get to that kind of 10-win mark. And throwing it back to what you said about the Christian McCaffrey being a focal point of the offense, absolutely true with Sam Darnold or Teddy Bridgewater as your quarterback. But now that we have Baker Mayfield, who's more of a downfield threat than those 2 quarterbacks, I think it might not end up revolving around him so much. I think the addition of Devontae Foreman in the offseason was a great take. We saw him back up, who was it? Derrick Henry last season, came in while he was injured, had an amazing few games there. So I think he's going to, compliment Christian McCaffrey that he's not going to need to touch the ball 60 times a game.
Okay. Fair enough. We'll move on then to our last team this evening, and that's the Atlanta Falcons. Jake, you were the one that talked about wanting to blow up the team in Atlanta, not actually physically, metaphorically. I'll let you go first on this one. How are you viewing the job that the GM have done with the roster this offseason?
I think the moves they made are a year too late, personally speaking. They should have gotten rid of Matt Ryan a year ago. Instead of drafting Kyle Pitts, they should have went with one of the top quarterbacks that we were all talking about in that draft. They didn't need Kyle Pitts. It was a waste of a 4th overall pick. I don't know. They're not going to be a good team this year. They picked up Desmond Ridder, who by all accounts seems pretty decent, but he's not going to be the starting quarterback, at least in the immediate future. They have Marcus Mariota there, Kyle Pitts, and then I can't remember the wide receiver that they have also, but it is going to be a dangerous team. Drake London as well. I think that was a bit why not pick someone that's going to benefit your team in the long term, someone in the trenches, someone like a tackle or something like that. I think it was just a bit of a kind of a fancy pick, but it does make them a kind of a dangerous team to defend against. They've got Marcus Mariota's legs, Drake London, Kyle Pitts were all big, strong targets. And I don't know how I feel about them. I don't think they're going to win anything, but they're certainly not going to be low enough to be picking up one of these top quarterbacks next year, which they'll probably need to do if Desmond Ridder doesn't pan out.
Yeah, I'd kind of agree with you there. I'd kind of agree with you there, Jake. I think this team are going to be a little bit too dangerous to teams to be a real threat to that number 1 overall pick. As you said, some of the decisions have been a little bit questionable. Going and getting Kyle Pitts, I understand the decision. He's a once-in-a-generation tight end with his his physical traits, his ability to catch the ball. He's good in the blocking situations as well. But then going out and getting Drake London as well this year after he refused to put a 40 time on tape, that just worries me a little bit. I don't know if he's going to have the speed or the release to be a dominant wide receiver in this league. I understand he's a big guy, he'll make the contested catches, but at the end of the day, the NFL is a speed league. Speed kills, and I'm not sure Drake London has the speed to be 100% successful in this league.
Okay. There is one player though that hasn't been mentioned that I feel should be, because he has become this really important player for the team, and that's Cordero Patterson. With Smith and his history with the Titans, and how he thought up running plays and schemes for someone like Derrick Henry. Cordero Patterson is his Derrick Henry, and I think he's used him very effectively last year. I think he's going to try and do the same again this year, whether as wide receiver or running back. I'd love to know what they think about this, though. But of course, Marcus Mariota is probably going to be the starting QB. Do you think he'll still be the starting QB come week 18, though?
I don't know. It depends how that team fares throughout the couple of first, say, quarter of the season. If they're winning a couple of games, they'll obviously keep Marcus Mariota in. But when they start to lose games, that season's gone out of hand, gone out of reach. They have to obviously see what they have in Desmond Ridder, because otherwise, what was the point in drafting him?
Yeah, it's really going to come down to basically how they value redshirting Ridder versus getting him into some game situations. We've seen QBs in the past be introduced into game situations a little bit too quickly in teams where there really isn't enough talent to help him and encourage him to get better. So I don't want to see that for Desmond Ridder. I can see it being kind of a week 8 changeover if they do go, say, 2-6 or 1-7 in those first 8 weeks. I can see Ridder coming in week 8. And really, I don't think that's the time that you should be bringing him in. Obviously, this guy has a little bit of talent to him, but I think throwing him in after 8 weeks of redshirting is just, it's not going to be a good idea for his development or for the team in general.
Yep. Sorry. The internet is acting up a lot this evening now. I was going to ask one more question before we wrap it up with the Ridder and Mariota aspect here. If it is the scenario like Ryan you mentioned there, team start 1-7 or 2-6. Do you think, not your head, because we've heard from you guys whether you'd like him or not, but would you think that Arthur Smith would put Ridder in, or do you think that he would keep rolling with Mariota, looking at draft position?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd see that. I can see them putting in Desmond Ridder even for small spells, quarters here or there, something like that. I don't see Arthur Smith playing solely for draft position, but I don't know the guy, so you never know how he's going to actually pan out. But most of these guys just want to win, and if they're not winning Mariota, they're probably going to try win with someone else.
But I think the question there is as well, who actually is going to be the better quarterback, right? So if they do put in Desmond Ridder in week 8, are they just making that as kind of a knee-jerk reaction? We see fans getting involved. We saw it happen with the Justin Fields start after week 8 when he got drafted in Chicago. Are they really going to be more successful with Desmond Ridder? I don't think so. Are they going to be less successful with Desmond Ridder? I also don't think so. These two quarterbacks are two totally different guys. And I think the success is more so going to come on the defensive side of the ball and the talent that's around the quarterbacks.
Okay, well, I think that's a perfect place to end this, because we can't risk my internet going off anymore. This has been our AFC South and NFC South preview show. Rian and Jake, thank you so much as always.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
We will be back later this weekend, where we're going to be looking at the last two divisions, of course. That's the AFC and NFC North. And then next week, we will have a bumper show for you looking ahead to the start of the season. Make sure you are staying glued, I should say, to our socials. That is at UnderCenterPod on Twitter. The same on Instagram at UnderCenterPod. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, Undercenter Podcast. And the same for the audio side, Undercenter Podcast. Make sure you are subscribed to that too. But like I said, this is a perfect place to end tonight's show. Thank you for listening and watching. Stay safe, and we will see